Welcome to the Life Podcast, where life stands for live inspired fully every day. Join our host, world-class speaker, executive coach, and leadership strategist, Anissa Rashad. Each week, as she sits down for an intimate conversation with business executives, influencers, and artists who are at the top of their game to reveal the strategies they use to excel in their respective fields and their personal lives by unpacking their spirit. Each episode is guaranteed to help you lift a load, tackle a problem, gain a new perspective, while having a laugh in the process. Now here's your host, Anissa Rashad. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am Anissa Rashad, and I am super excited to invite you to today's episode of the Life Podcast, where we are interviewing Miss Cynthia James, world-renowned leader of women's transformation. Cynthia, welcome to the Life Podcast.
I am so happy to be here, and I am so happy to be with you.
Oh my goodness. Cynthia and I just have a love affair. She is truly one of my favorite people, and I am so excited to have a conversation that she and I would have on any given Sunday, right, on the phone, to be able to have this conversation and allow all of you to listen and be a part of this goodness. So Cynthia, I want to first start with, tell us a little bit about what you do and what you're paying attention to as it relates to what you do right now.
I call myself a transformational specialist, a champion for change. I'm really dedicated to supporting people's awakening on this planet, especially women. I think it's the time where women are emerging into their own power, their own voice, and bringing their gifts to the planet in a different way. And so I'm happy to be a part of that transformation. In fact, it ignites me, because when I get to see women stand in their truth, we bring the nurturing, we bring the love, and we bring the peace to the planet.
Excellent. Now, I'm just curious, what is life trying to teach you right now?
Well, what life is trying to teach me right now is to trust my inner knowing, to trust my inner guidance, to know that, there are no mistakes. There are just moments where you have a learning opportunity, but it's all for your growth, and everything that's ever happened has brought you to this moment. So for me, it's like, listen. It's like, listen deeply and profoundly and trust the guidance and be obedient to it.
And so I know a lot of people who are listening are in the middle of their lives, and they're working hard, and they're back and forth and back and forth. And we say these things like trust and listen, but sometimes it's a little harder for the everyday person who doesn't have a practice around it. What would you recommend to someone who says, I like that Cynthia James, I like what she said on the Life Podcast, I'm going to start trying to listen and trust? Where do they start? Like, how do they get on that train?
I want to say some sort of spiritual practice. I've been meditating for 40 years, and so it's easy for me, but I will share with you that in a number of the places where I've taught and worked with people, they've got, I cannot sit down and I can meditate. My mind won't stop. And so, I created moving meditations, because what I want people to know is that meditation doesn't have to be just sitting in a chair. Mm-hmm. It could be on a hike. It could be by simply sitting by a tree. It could be by journaling. It could be by just allowing yourself to be present with what you're feeling. So that's the first thing. It's like, can you get present with yourself? Mm-hmm. And not judge who you are and where you are, but really just get present with yourself and honor those feelings and those experiences, and then choose where you want to go.
Love it. Love it. So did you get that? She said, be present with yourself. And I think oftentimes it's easier for people to be distracted by social media or whatever the latest thing that's trending on TV or in the news. It's easy to look to those things than to just do what Cynthia said, be present with yourself and pay attention to
what you're feeling, what's going on inside. Pay more attention to what's going on inside than what's going on outside. I love it. I love it. So, Cynthia, tell us a little bit about the trips that you sponsor around the world.
Yeah, I remember growing up and I remember being in church and there was a statement, get thee apart a while. And I'm like, what the heck does that mean? Right.
Mhm.
But what I love to travel and I love to explore sacred sites around the world. Doesn't matter what religion. It's like, that offer like sacred space. And so I've taken people to walk the labyrinth in France, in Chartres. I've taken people to Peru, to Machu Picchu. I'm currently taking people to Damanhur, Italy, where we get to meditate in the temples of humankind, which are inside a mountain and where four ley lines intersect. And for those who don't know what that means, it has more energy than Sedona, right? I love telling people come and just we stretch in the morning, we do spiritual practice, and then we go to these sacred sites. And everybody has a different experience. But for me, it's like we get to just get in contact with our inner knowing.
Hmm. Oh, that's beautiful. When is your next trip? Like, what's going on? What are some of the things you have coming up?
In September, I take people to Damanhur, and I take 12 people. I like small groups so that we get to bond and be kind of a spiritual family. And we spend 7 days, and it's beautiful. They have this thing called Sacred Woods, and there are all these beautiful. You never know when just one kind moment or one loving comment changes a person's life. I had a woman send me an email and she said, you don't know me. And 5 years ago, you were speaking, and I actually was contemplating suicide.
Wow.
And I came out and I stood in the line to meet you. And you looked at me with such love that I knew I needed to stay here. And
Wow.
it's taken me all this time to kind of get my life together, but I wanted you to know, don't discount who you are and what you do.
Wow. And that's exactly it. Right? And that's why you do what you do to change one life, right?
Exactly.
Many is amazing, but if you change one, that's enough.
Mhm.
So,
Exactly.
what are you doing right now to reinvent yourself?
Well, you know what? I am really it's so funny. I teach that, the calendar that you have is for you. And so what I am doing with my calendar is I am actually putting me first. Um, and so the reinvention is really um, when do I want to see clients? When do I want to speak? Where is my workout? Where is my spiritual time? Where is my space time? I mean, because I was a workaholic and because it was all about having people love me because of what I did, right now the reinvention is, how do I love me for me and take care of me so that I can be a beneficial presence? And so I'm writing and I'm speaking and I'm doing all those things, but really the reinvention is me first. Choose me and everything else falls into place.
Love it. Love it. You own the time in your life. Tell it where to go. It's your time. We often treat our calendar like it's controlling us. Like we have to do the things that our calendar tells us to do, when in actuality, we are the ones placing these things on our calendar. We're not a victim to it. We own it. But we have
Exactly.
to be conscious of that. So what three tools do you use to stay on top of your game? And in this, I'm talking about, is there an app or is there a grocery delivery service? Is there something? What are three things you use, three tools you use to help you stay on top of your game?
Um, I travel a lot, and there's an app I love called TripIt.
I knew this. I don't know if this was intuitive or what, but when I was thinking about, I usually sit and have quiet space before I get before I do the podcast. And I was just thinking about you. And I said, I bet you Cynthia is going to say Trip It for one of her tools. Because I know you travel a lot. So I literally thought
oh my goodness. It's been one of the greatest things. There's another thing.
So tell them what Trip It is.
People Trip It. Okay. So you book a flight, right? And it comes into your email. You forward it on to Trip It, and within seconds, it comes back with your whole itinerary. So you can add cars in there, you can add hotels in there. And so when you get ready to go, you go into Trip It, you click on where you're going, and everything's in there. OMG. I gotta tell you, that was one of my great gifts.
Right? It's amazing how this technology can make the things that we have to do, like travel, become so much easier. What's another tool that you use, Cynthia?
There's I speak a lot, and sometimes I just have thoughts. And there's an app called Rev, R-E-V. And what it does is you record into it, and then it goes out, and then it sends you the transcript of what you've said within a day. And so because I write and things like that, and because, sometimes I'll just have these, downloads, I'll just turn on Rev and I'll talk into it, and then it comes, and then I've got it, and I can use it. Sometimes it's for curriculum, and sometimes it's, for a chapter I'm working on, but it has really helped me. I recorded a whole class that I taught, and on my phone, and then on Rev, and I sent it out, and then, the transcripts came for each chapter, for each class.
That is awesome. So I'll say that Cynthia and I are accountability partners. And one of the things she shared with me during one of our sessions was about Rev, and I started using it. And I can tell you, that is one of the tools you have to get for sure. It will transform. Another thing Cynthia shared with me that I probably the best gift you shared with me was the power of a nap.
Yay!
Now, let me be fully transparent and say, at the time she taught me, I just totally embraced it. And at this point, I have totally fallen off the wagon and need rest even in this moment as we're recording this session. So I am guilty. So we probably need to get together and have another conversation about that offline. But that, I know, just learning that lesson and to see how good it feels to be rested, to see how good it feels to show up in the world from a space that's rested and not tired. And as you kind of alluded to earlier, that pushing through phase.
Yeah, and let me just tell you about the power of the nap, because here's the thing. Sometimes you don't have the ability to go lay down in a bed and snuggle up with your pillow and rest, right? You don't. But what I will tell you is just disconnecting from everything and everyone. If you can lay on your couch or sit in your chair, set the timer on your phone for 18 to 20 minutes. You don't want to go longer than that, because then you drop into this deep sleep and you can wake up feeling foggy. Mm-hmm. But in that 20 minutes, what you do is you reset. And so you can just breathe, or you can just lay there and just allow yourself to just let go into whatever couch or chair you're sitting on. It's rejuvenating.
So I know there's at least one person listening who was just like I was, like, oh my God, who has time for that? Those people, I used to talk about people like you. Those people who take naps, obviously, look, this is what you're thinking in your mind. They're not as important as I am. Like, clearly they can't be. Because often we confuse with being busy with being important, right? And so you think there's no way. And I also used to think that a nap had to be like, going into a deep sleep for an hour. But what it really can be is just what you said, because you have to set that timer. Setting a timer, and it's almost even just being in a meditative space. It's just lying there, being still. If it's sitting in a chair, sometimes I'm in a public space and I'll just set a 10-minute timer and just breathe, clear my head. I'm writing a curriculum and it's a lot of information and you're really processing on so many levels. And I'll just set that 10-minute timer just to be still, just to kind of, nod, if you would, right? Just be still, be centered, be grounded. And then I find when I go back to the work, I'm able to access so many more different parts of my brain. Like the information pours in because you just allowed that space.
Right. And you can do it on your lunchtime. I do it every time I take off in a plane. I just go into that kind of still space. And it's not, I mean, I love to fly, but it's really for me to just really sink in. And what I want to say to you is that, because when I said, do it on your lunch, I could see some people going, I don't take lunch. I eat at my desk.
Yeah,
and
me. That was me. I did that.
Right. And I'm going to invite you to stop it. I don't care if it's a half an hour where you get away from that desk or you lay down on that couch or you do something that allows you to reset, because you will think clearer and you'll be more focused.
Love it. Love it. Do you have one last tool? We talked about TripIt. We talked about Rev. Is there another tool that you have that you use?
I tell people, pray first.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is, for some people, like, they don't pray, right? It's like, I don't pray. But what it means is pause.
Mm-hmm.
Before you hit the send button, before you write an email, before you make a decision or have some kind of response, pause. Now, for me, what that means is I just stop and I tell the universe, okay, I need you to help me be clear here before I move. Mm-hmm. So you can call it pause, you can call it pray, you can call it play. It doesn't matter what you call it. It's
just
like,
do it.
Yes, stop. Because if you are stressed and if you are anxious and anxiety filled, you will make decisions out of what we call below the line. It's like where you need to win and your ego's in there and you're fighting. Whereas if you pause, you get to move above that line where you start to trust and open and express from a place of heart and consciousness.
Love it. Love it. So the last question that I have for you today, this has been amazing. It's so, for me, again, it's so nice to have Cynthia and I like this every time we talk, but it's nice to be, right? We just talked last week. And it's just nice to be able to have our conversation in a space where other people are able to hear and be like you told me about the Rev a few years ago. Now all of our Life podcast listeners will be able to have the benefit of that. And so my last question for you, Cynthia, is this. What's one thing that you recommend to our Life podcast listeners to help them live inspired fully every day?
What I would tell you is, whether it's an affirmation or that you write or something that you get, I would encourage you to have a mantra, an affirmation that reminds you that you're remarkable, that you're unique and you're powerful, and that there is something that you and only you have come here to do. And you don't have to know what that is in the moment, but something that just reminds you that you are extraordinary and a masterpiece in the making.
Oh, I love it. I am Anissa Rashad. This has been another episode of the Life Podcast with the amazing Cynthia James. Cynthia, I love you. You know, when I say that, I mean that sincerely. I love you. You are my sister. You are my friend. You are a place that I go to for inspiration. You are one of my personal accountability partners. I am so grateful that you are in my circle, in my space, and that I know that I can call you anytime. I really appreciate that.
I love you too, and I'm honored to walk this path with you. You inspire me.
Mwah. Until next time. As always, we thank you for taking the time to listen to the Live Inspired Fully Everyday podcast. If you enjoyed the show, by all means, subscribe. While you're at it, do your friends, colleagues, and family a favor and share. There are thousands of podcasts available in iTunes, so help others to make the same choice you did by leaving a review. We love to hear from you, so leave us a question and maybe we'll select your question to answer on our next episode. The show notes that list all of the books, tweetables, and companies we referenced are all available at lifebyanisa.com. Until next week, I am Anisa Rashad, executive coach and leadership strategist, challenging you to live inspired fully every day.